Look at what's happening over there in certain areas of Iran. Posters are starting to appear. We can see them there where they're looking to recruit members for Hezbollah. Supposedly they pay them $1,000 a week or something like that. The point here is, why would they need to recruit people inside Iran? If it's always been Lebanese Shiites who are recruited for that radical group, obviously this is raising a lot of doubts. The recruitment ads for this radical group are probably offering exaggerated sums, right? Like $1,000 a month, especially exaggerated for the area. We have to remember the fall in the value of Iran's currency, right? So it's quite a substantial amount of money for them. Now, throughout its entire existence, Hezbollah has recruited only Lebanese Shiites, but not Iranians. This means that either they're running out of personnel and are no longer recruiting enough people over there on that side. A point of weakness. Or what's happening? Israel has been inflicting heavy damage for some years now. Besides, a lot of people don't want to belong to that group. They're Shiites, but no, they don't want to belong to a radical militia, right? For an organization that had presented itself as the one that wanted to control the area, it looks weaker and weaker. That's also why the current government of Lebanon is starting to put more and more pressure on that group. We'll see what happens, but it's an issue to watch closely. Meanwhile, let's move on to other important matters, because intelligence. From the United States, Washington's intelligence is warning that Netanyahu is on the verge of breaking the agreement with Iran. And you might say, but Netanyahu doesn't have an agreement. No, he doesn't have an agreement, but he can influence the region so that the agreement doesn't go through. According to reports, and this is what the Washington Post says, this American outlet reveals that US intelligence agencies are considering it's likely that Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, will take measures that complicate or even replace the efforts to consolidate a lasting peace agreement with Iran. In other words, there will be moves that we will be seeing soon in which Netanyahu's office will be planning the breakdown. Oh, not the one that leads to reaching no agreement. One of the pillars of understanding between Washington and Tehran involves the reduction or end of hostilities in Lebanese territory, something that Israel obviously has to address, meaning the end. On one hand, that Hezbollah does not attack Israel, but also that Israel does not attack Hezbollah, and that's the part that Netanyahu doesn't like. That's a key pillar of understanding. But there are also sectors in the coalition, the Israeli government, who demand to maintain the offensive against Hezbollah and reject any move that could be interpreted as a concession or a strategic defeat. Because he, not continuing to attack them when they are already very weakened, could be seen as a loss, as a capitulation, as a surrender. And obviously Israel is not accepting that, right? The meeting scheduled in Switzerland, which by the way will take place tomorrow, is a preliminary meeting, since it has not been said the agreement will not be signed tomorrow supposedly, right? If they move forward and sign it. But right now, at this moment, the current stage is just a meeting. We'll talk more about the topic signing. Just a moment ago, we were talking about everything that's happening. Now, the meeting in Switzerland caused uncertainty and highlighted the potential reality of the conflict. Pues no solamente incertidumbre, sino que también muestra cómo los think a very different way. According to him, the 15,000 US military personnel who participated during the meeting. Refugees, according to him, the 15,000 US military personnel who participated during these months in the blockade and appeared in the blockade, and it seems to point to a kind of withdrawal. As Iran tightens internal policy and closes the Strait of Hormuz again, the United States steps back. Israel is expected to hold a preliminary meeting tomorrow as reported. The agreement won't continue, but it will be signed rather than broken. Understanding there's a meeting scheduled. Está en juego pues que Israel se quede solo, ¿verdad? Israel is left alone. Bien, que Hormuz sea controlado. Tomorrow, that's what the United States is planning, because the United States says, it says a meeting. Digo lo que está planificando Estados Unidos, porque dice Estados Unidos, if in case the agreement is not reached within the president of the United States clarified that the pact with Iran provides for free movement without tolls, without charges. Strange. What is it? A meeting. The President of the United States clarified that the pact with Iran provides for free movement in the area, no charges. However, he maintains that if the decision is finally made to start charging for the services provided, he warns that then the United States will be the one to go and impose tolls, as was discussed in a previous meeting. And no more tolls should be imposed. He says there will be no tolls in the Strait of Hormuz, not even during the agreement. So, right now there won't be any tolls. There won't be any charges at all. He says, in the planned meeting, there won't be any charges, he says, unless they are imposed by the US. If we impose them, yes, but no one else can set tolls in the area unless they are imposed by the United States. It's just preliminary meeting. It also draws attention right now because the channel says, Channel 12 of Swiss Preview says, that's how it's sounding. Let's see, I'm getting lost there on this map that they're already set for tomorrow. They're in a preliminary meeting, that there's no longer, Israel is not making any moves inside southern Lebanon. They are going to stay in this area for sure. Movimientos dentro del sur del Líbano sí que se van a mantener en esta zona, dentro del Líbano, pero que Israel no va a estar haciendo ataques. Según los informes del FDI, los movimientos y las hostilidades han cesado. Scheduled meeting and reports where Israel will be carrying out attack. According to IDF reports, moves and hostilities have ceased. They will maintain the instructions of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And now they say no, but also that they should leave. And so on, right? They're trying to gain ground, aren't they? To gain ground in all of this. And one of the scheduled meeting points between State A and Iran since the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding has been precisely tomorrow. Israeli military battles Hezbollah in Lebanon, which, according to Channel 12, has stopped for now, but things are taking a different turn. According to reports and what is starting to appear, some images, some photos, videos, and so on. It shows, according to reports, Hezbollah is allegedly launching 50 projectiles at the forces gathered in southern Lebanon, despite the ceasefire. In other words, Hezbollah is firing in that area. They would be attacking the forces set to meet tomorrow at a preliminary meeting and already launched attacks on their southern forces before the ceasefire was signed. During the night, the terrorist organization Hezbollah launched more than 50 projectiles at the Israeli gatherings. After the attacks, the Israel Defense Forces have been attacking Hezbollah terrorist targets, they say, in southern Lebanon. An Israeli military official said this to the AFP agency. But anyway, the point is that attacks keep happening, movements keep happening, and it doesn't seem like this is over yet. So for tomorrow, something else is going to happen. It's a heat wave alert. Una alerta calor tremenda. Heat wave. And not a scheduled meeting that you're experiencing here in California and Mexico, but a heat wave that's happening in this region of the world. This heat wave has already issued several warnings. And look, if we observe el pico de calor que viene para el día de mañana, it's tremendous because the heat that's usually experienced in a previous meeting, not at that level, but let's say pretty close, is going to be felt in some parts of Europe. Let's go into the details of what has been warned. But right off the bat, it's going to surpass the record. Temperatures of 40 degrees Celsius in some places. Well, in areas that aren't very used to it, they're going to be experiencing either temperatures close to 40 or even higher heat indexes. The highest alert, for example, is being issued in France, Spain, Italy, and even in some other regions of the Mediterranean. Thermometers in France have been reaching up to 40 degrees in several places. A meeting is scheduled in Switzerland, which has issued a red alert in dozens of departments due to heat episodes, exceptional and above all, long-lasting. The meteorological agency Meteo France has declared a red alert in 35 departments, and Switzerland is on alert, which will continue until tomorrow, with a red alert in 35 departments and an orange alert in another 45 departments. Faced with the heat episodes that are occurring, and look over here suddenly in these areas since they are happening, and look over here, suddenly it won't be signed. Planned in, let's say, the alert level that's for them, right? Because when you look at the statistics and see the numbers, you say, well, yeah, there are problems. There's a heat alert. Suddenly someone got overheated over there or felt sick over here. I don't know, but it usually doesn't get any worse. The thing is that the season of intense heat is coming, and the situation leaves many people very affected or even without life. We're talking about how these hours of heat in Europe have caused even thousands of people to, let's say, lose their lives in a way that's, let's say, kind of indirect, so to speak. I mean, because these are people who feel bad, they start to get heat stroke or whatever, and it affects them, right? I mean, before they weren't counted, but now that they've been investigating, they've realized that every time there's a heat wave, the number of people who die goes up, especially older people. They're not used to it, or they live in areas that aren't prepared for a heat wave like that. So that's why they get so alert. The forecasts indicate that today temperatures will reach 38 degrees and tomorrow Sunday between 39 and 40 degrees. In New Aquitania, part of the Isle of France, in Octa, in Occitania, in Paris, in Burgundy, and in other regions. There will also be quite high temperatures, even with peaks of up to 41 degrees Celsius. So, well, what's coming is challenging, at least from here. So we'll be keeping an eye on what's coming, and we'll talk about it as it happens. But this, well, is really intense. I mean, you know, there are areas, if we go to regions closer to the Gulf, towards Kuwait and places like that, well, there are already temperatures close to 50 degrees with heat indexes of 52, 53 degrees. I mean, it's really, really intense, right? If you go further into the Middle East towards the Sahel and that whole area, it's like that. The level of heat experienced in some of these regions is amazing. So, well, we'll be keeping an eye on that. In the meantime, let's move on to other important topics as well. Look, there's a whole tug of war going on between the Prime Minister of Italy and Donald Trump. Yesterday, we were talking about part of this, right? I mean, they've really been going at it. Let's see if we can get this straight. Let's see. I'll do it like this. So you can see the comments already dubbed into Spanish from Donald Trump and then from Giorgia Meloni, right? They've really been hitting each other hard. What is it that Donald Trump says? Basically, what he says is that she wants to raise her ratings. That's it. Popularity. And that's why she's talking to him and basically asking him to get closer to her so she can increase her popularity. He tells her, please, first check your popularity and then we'll talk about it. He doesn't say it, says Donald Trump. The Italian Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, kept asking me over and over for a photo with me during the G7 meeting in France. She's having a hard time in Italy with her level of popularity, possibly because she rejected the United States of America, a country that truly loves and protects Italy. When it came to denying Iran, she supplied it. I mean, she basically asked to let her planes pass or land. And she said, no, no, no. If those planes are at war, they can't enter, right? So, well, they got pretty upset about this. Neither Spain, nor France, nor anyone else. I mean, no European country allowed them to enter their territories, right? I mean, while they were in a war operation, they didn't want to be. They didn't want to be part of the war, right? And he says, they say a little further on, she wants to be friends again, says Trump, to improve her numbers. No thanks, says President Trump. He hasn't given it much importance. Trump bringing up this topic means that he cares. It means that it bothers him. Let's say that they called him a liar. The same Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni. And then Meloni responds to him and says the following. Let's go to Georgia's message. She doesn't call him President Trump. These constant and unprovoked attacks are senseless. As far as my popularity is concerned, you're being my friend. See, it certainly hasn't helped me. I mean, being your friend doesn't help me, he says, nor does it depend on my relationship with you. My popularity depends on my ability to defend the national interest of Italy. And that's exactly what I've always done. That's also what I said regarding the American military bases in Italy. Their use is governed by agreements that we have always respected and that cannot be violated as long as I am Prime Minister. Italy remains a sovereign nation. In any case, my popularity is none of your business. I suggest you worry about your own, says Giorgia Meloni. Well, let's see. Now he finally answers the answer to whether he will leave or not. But yes. Well, they're upset. They're upset, angry, and they're saying just about everything to each other, right? This too. Well, it's certainly noticeable. There's this image. If we can put it here, it's this image. There it is. But there are protests this time from the left in Peru where they take to the streets. This is already appearing on different social networks. Apparently, the victory of Fujimori is not accepted by the left. And well, you know how this goes. They say it's electoral fraud and so on, right? Yeah, honestly, it was a really close race. And it's very logical that when it's so close, the one who ends up behind is going to want to say no, right? That they're not going to accept the result. That's almost just common sense with this kind of politics or politicians, right? Well, that's how it's going to be. We'll see. Right? If there's evidence of wrongdoing, it must be considered. However, major protests are already beginning. By the way, pay attention to what's happening in Bolivia, because Bolivia has also had a series of huge protests from groups close to Evo Morales, right? Among other groups, right? Not all of them are close to him, but many of them are very close to him. Now, Bolivia is entering a state of emergency, according to what the government of that country itself has reported. They would be entering a state of emergency, supposedly to calm things down. That's what they say. Not to be kidnapped by a group of people across the whole country, says Rodrigo Paz, the president of the Andean country, who reportedly announced that a state of emergency would come into effect nationwide to clear all the roads. Bolivians cannot continue to be hostages. The current president has said. He said this today, this Saturday, on this very day, on a day when the whole country enters, well, after weeks of protests and blockades that even affected the supply of basic necessities, right? Well, these have caused 16 people to lose their lives, and 13 out of those 16 died because they didn't receive timely medical attention due to the blockades. So help couldn't get through. And people had to wait and ended up dying. Out of the 16 who have died, it's because of the blockades. 3 died from that, and 3 more for other reasons. So this is really a serious issue. Great. So a big shout out to Julio Benavides, to Eliseo. How have you been? God bless you. How have you been? To the whole community. Thank you so much to German, to the whole community that's joining the live stream. Luis Lam, it's great to see you here. Orbal Munoz and everyone joining us. Thank you so much for being on this live stream. Look, we're going to move on. Now, we're going to straight to the next report. We're going to the next live stream where we're going to talk about something that's related to this and the council that's meeting at the White House about the webs, as well as some images that have been appearing of an alleged plague in Spain. Let's get to that. Let's talk about that topic. Let's go over there and go live. If it doesn't switch automatically, check right here on the channel. We'll be live right away. Bueno,